The U.S. announces a massive arms sale to Taiwan worth over $10 billion. Joining us to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Center for American Safety and Security. So, Taylor, good afternoon to you. I just wanted to ask you, if this is approved by Congress, it would be the largest ever weapons package to Taiwan in U.S. history, and it would exceed the total amount of arms sales to Taiwan during the Biden administration. What is your analysis on this?
Well, my analysis of this is first and foremost that I think that this is an incredibly necessary arms deal. Taiwan is an incredibly important part of U.S. national security and defense, and I think a lot of people don't understand just how big of a role that they play in the Indo-Pacific and in our defense culture. But largely, I want to highlight the fact that I think my bigger point on this is that this is just a further reflection of how many ills were done during the Biden administration and how they really let their foot off the gas on many critical areas of defense. And I think that we're unfortunately going to see the negative effects of that for many years to come.
Okay, can we go into a bit more detail about the national security impacts of Taiwan for the U.S.? Why is Taiwan such an important ally?
So Taiwan is part of the first island chain. It is a reflection of democracy and a beacon in the Indo-Pacific. Most of I think of the third of the shipping and the supply chain in the world goes through this area. And so if China gets a hold of Taiwan and states a claim on Taiwan and invades Taiwan, then they have access to critical areas of national security, such as logistics and such as the semiconductors and the chips that are used in the manufacturing for a lot of our defense initiatives. So there is not a single fighter pilot, drone, jet, ship, ballistic missile that we use that does not use these semiconductors that Taiwan produces. And it's estimated between 60 to 70% of all of these semiconductors and chips are manufactured from one company in Taiwan. So this is incredibly important. I think a viewer can draw the direct line and connection to the fact that if China is able to take over a nation that has the largest producer of something that the United States absolutely needs as a critical use for the support of their military, this would be detrimental as China is not our ally.
So speaking of China, Beijing's foreign ministry responded to this. It said, "quote This cannot save the doomed fate of Taiwan independence, but will only accelerate military confrontation and war." So, in your view, does helping Taiwan defend itself decrease the chance of a conflict, or does it increase the chance?
I think people have a really strange misperception on what China is. I think that people think that they can work with the leadership in Beijing and just be nice enough to them and give them enough of what they want, and they'll change their entire military strategy. And that's simply not the case. China has been committing acts of hybrid warfare and direct warfare all over the world. They look at everything that they've done with the Belt and Road Initiative. Look at the inroads that they have with Venezuela, with Iran, with Russia. Look at the way that Russia and China work together on the UN Security Council to veto pretty much every single resolution that is passed or tries to pass. And so, China, there is no amount of giving into China with the exception of saying, here, China, you can have it all. The world is yours. That is going to be the only way that they stop. And we as a nation have to decide, do we value the democratic and Western values that we hold dear? The rule of law, freedom of autonomy, freedom of religion, these things that are incredibly free speech, these things that are incredibly important to us as a nation. And is that something that we value? Because if it is, we have to make sure that China is kept in check. And so I don't think that any amount of placating to China is going to get them to stop doing what they want to do. And so the best way to deal with a bully is really to tell the bully that we're going to do what we want to do. And if they have to act out because of that, then so be it. But the United States defense policy should not change based on the threats of an adversary. We need to set our defense policy and move forward accordingly, regardless of what China decides to do.
Okay, can you just expand on that point? What does this tell China? Is there a message that this deal is sending?
I I hope that China can see that over the last 10 months, the president is really serious about being willing to work towards a diplomatic solution. The solution here, I don't believe that Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, President Trump, I don't believe any of them's first gut reaction is to go to war with China, to fight with China, to shut China down. I think that that has been reflected in the national defense policy that was released earlier this month that people can go online and read. You can see that we've pulled back on what we deem is a threat to China because I believe this administration is truly trying to work with diplomacy first. That being said, I think that China understands and realizes that if diplomatic efforts cannot be reached, if we cannot get on the same page as two global superpowers who do have the ability to destroy each other, if warranted and if necessary, that we're heading down a dark and heavy road. And I think China is having to weigh that cost right now, just in the same way that we're weighing that cost. And our administration, this Trump administration, I believe, is looking at this from a practical standpoint and really doing checks and balances and looking at the ROI of this and saying, if we can do this diplomatically, we will do it diplomatically. But if we can't, and I think that China taking Taiwan would be one of those we can't do it, then we're going to have to explore different avenues.
Well, all right, Taylor. Before we end this interview, I just want to make a correction. I said Taiwan was an ally to the U.S. earlier. It's not an official ally in the sense that Japan is an ally to the U.S., but we can say that the U.S. and
Correct.
Taiwan has a close partnership. So yeah, that should do it for today. Great comments, Taylor. Thank you very much for coming on.
Great seeing you.